Hi, I'm Matt Haslam, and today I want to share with you my story, because there's honestly no better way for me to start off this channel than by telling you the main reason why I'm starting it in the first place: empowerment. For years before I came out, I turned to literally any coming out video I can find on YouTube and beyond, trying to find strength and courage from all of those people, just so I can feel comfortable in my own skin and be proud of who I am. And with their help and courage and empowerment, I finally found the strength to accept myself for who I am. And with that, a couple months later, tell my family and friends my secret. So I know how much a channel like this, and especially a video like this, can mean to someone who isn't yet out to the world. I know how much it can mean to someone who is out, but needs to maybe find encouragement and power through the community behind them. So while today I want to share with you my personal journey, the truth is, in the coming months and years, I want to share with you a whole lot more. Because while yes, it is true, I am gay, but I have a huge community behind me, which means I'm powered and protected by rainbows. You know, when I was younger, my parents used to tell me all the time how much of a Casanova I was. And I used to flirt with all of the girls in my life from when I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old to about 10 years old. But the first real crush that I remember in my life, and the first real crush that I wanted to go places, was when I was 11 years old. And at the time, I was going to a Catholic grade school in Port Carbon, PA. And I was in the Boy Scouts of America. And my best friend at the time, his name was Alex. And Alex was this incredible kid. He was a classmate of mine in school. He was in my troop in the Boy Scouts of America. And we used to hang out with each other all the time. And I remember when I was 11, his parents invited me along on a trip. They were going down to a museum in Philadelphia. It was the Science Museum. And the entire 2.5-hour car ride down there, Alex and I were in the back seat, and his parents were in the front, and we just were talking about the fact that neither one of us at 11 years old, believe it or not, never had our first kiss yet. Alex and I just spoke about this for 2.5 hours, and he was talking about a classmate of ours that he wanted to have his first kiss with, and I said to him something along the lines of, I didn't want to wait any longer. I wanted to have my first kiss that very same day. And he started to ask me, like, do you want to just kiss a random stranger in the museum later on today? What's up with this? And I kept on saying, no, I don't want to kiss a random stranger. And I think his parents sort of caught on to what I was trying to get at. And in a way, I'm really lucky that he didn't understand what I meant, and his parents didn't understand, or at least they didn't say anything about it, because had anyone really caught on to the fact that I was gay back then, I would have been kicked out of school, I would have been kicked out of the Boy Scouts, and that meant I couldn't spend any time with Alex. And that also meant I couldn't go on any of these camping trips to summer camp and see hundreds of really cute guys every summer, and it meant my whole world would be turned upside down. And then really quickly after that, I was in school one day, and they decided to give us this big lecture on how homosexuality was wrong. And I know there are going to be friends of mine who criticize the way that I'm portraying the Catholic Church right now in this very statement, but it's not that I believe that the Catholic Church as a whole is a bad thing. Please understand that. But all I can do is repeat the same exact words that I was told as a kid. And those words from that priest that one day, they still scar me for life. And so in the end, over the coming months and years, I just pushed Alex away from me. I didn't want anyone to assume that I was flirting with him instead of just being friendly, even though that's exactly what I was doing. So I just decided to push him away, and I eventually lost him as a friend because of it. And it sucks because he was a great guy. And then I went to high school, where basically I decided to go to a public high school. My sophomore year, this girl started to chase after me. And she expressed her interest, and she started to call me cute and stuff like that. And I thought nothing of it, because what gay guy would think anything of a girl chasing after him, right? And then finally in my junior year, it was about a year after she started chasing after me, I finally said yes to going out on a date with her. Because all my life I was called gay as an insult, and I decided I finally had enough of that. If I ever wanted to get rid of that stigma, then I just had to go out with a girl. And I thought if I had a girlfriend, I would forget about all these feelings of guys, and it would just all suddenly stop, because now I had a girlfriend. And so we started going out, and I really liked it. And we were together for about a year. Unfortunately, about a month into our relationship, I started checking out all of these guys again. And I started to realize that I can check out guys while holding her hand, and no one would think twice about it. No one would call me gay for it, because I now had a girlfriend. And in a way, she was sort of like my cover girl. And then right after high school, I decided to go to college for something in my industry, for lighting and sound and video work. But about a couple months into my freshman year there, I was running lighting and sound for this birthday party, and the cake decorator at the event was related to my client for the event, and basically she expressed her interest to my client, and my client came over to me and is like, the cake decorator really likes you. And I was so excited, because here again was this chance for me to turn straight again and have a girlfriend again, and maybe forget about these feelings of guys once and for all. And her and I went on one date together. And the entire time I was on that date, I just, again, felt this hole in my heart that there was something missing there. There was something not right about the situation. And then a couple weeks after all of that, I met this boy in college named Jeff. And Jeff was this incredibly talented photographer who just happened to be openly gay, and not to mention incredibly cute. And he was such a nice guy, and we always palled around with each other because we just got along so well. And we always had classes together because we were going to college for the same exact degree. And him and I would always choose each other for our partners for out-of-class assignments and stuff like that. And he just fascinated me so much, because he was open about being gay, and yet he had this perfectly normal job at a restaurant. He was building this incredible career as a photographer, and he was killing it as a photographer, by the way. And, all of his family and friends knew this, and they loved him regardless of that. And I was just fascinated so much by it all. And so I asked him a ton of questions on this, and I knew I had a huge crush on him. And then in the springtime, I decided enough was enough. I was going to tell him how I felt about him. And I didn't know exactly when I was going to tell him. I didn't have a certain date in mind. But then one day we were working on an out-of-class project, and he just casually mentioned to me how his boyfriend and him were going on a vacation soon, or a little day trip soon. And in that moment, I knew that he didn't feel the same way about me, and he already found someone. And I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that it broke my heart in a million pieces that day. And that day on the car ride home, I had about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half to just feel everything I needed to feel in that moment. I had the entire car ride home, I was bawling my eyes out. And when I finally got home and I pulled in the driveway, I had to clean myself up really quick and put on this face that everything was fine, because I could not let my family know why I was upset. And that honestly hurt me more than anything else that day, because I felt so much in pain, but I couldn't share any of it. I knew in that moment that I was gay, and there was no doubting it anymore, because I felt so much more pain from this boy who I merely had a crush on, telling me that he had a boyfriend already. It just hurt so much more than breaking up with my high school girlfriend after a year. After college, I got a job as a general manager of a local lighting and sound business. And it was this very small company, which only had 3 people working for it. Myself, the owner, and one guy who worked under me. And because we were so small, we couldn't do a lot of bigger events on our own. And so we worked with a lot of our competitors who were a lot bigger. And one of those competitors just happened to be owned by a gay guy. And all of my time there, for the couple months I was working there, my boss used to make fun of this other boss for being gay. And he used to just rip into him for how wrong it was to be gay. A lot of people have asked me why I left that company so early on after only a couple months of working there. And they just assume it was because it was such a stressful job being the general manager of a company. But the truth is, I've been the owner of my own lighting and sound company and film business since I was 9 years old, and I've run events 10 times that size. And so, yeah, it was stressful, but it was very normal stress in this industry to be in. And so the real reason why I left there was because I never felt comfortable after that moment. And in Pennsylvania, there are no laws to protect us LGBTQ members from being fired for this. There are really no laws in a lot of states still that don't protect us. And for the next couple of years, I decided to just not put myself out there to find love again, because I couldn't date a girl yet because I wasn't out, and I couldn't try to find a boy yet because, again, I wasn't out. And then back in 2015, I got a job at a local TV station. And it was wonderful because about a month into working there, I knew I absolutely loved the people there. And I, in fact, still work there to this day because I just love the people so much. But about a month into working there, we had this casual conversation. And I didn't bring it up, but they were talking in the production truck of how there's a gay person who works at this TV station. And in that moment, I was just amazed that this company was accepting of that. And I knew that this was the company I wanted to stay with for years and years into the future, because there was no fear of me being fired anymore. And then a couple years later, in the summer of 2017, I was working on this movie with a good friend of mine. And for that movie, he brought in all of these different actors from across the country to do the voice acting for his CGI film. And he brought them all into my studio right here. And one of those actors was this incredibly cute guy who, during that weekend, I flirted with a ton. And he was just so cute and nice and funny. And then this guy started to flirt with me back. And he was an actor, and so to this day, I still don't know for sure whether he actually felt those feelings towards me in return or if it was just acting. But regardless of that, I don't even know if I want to know if it was real or if it wasn't. All I need to know is the fact that he knew I was flirting with him and he accepted it. And that was the first time in my life where I felt free. I felt like I can flirt with someone and them not hate me for it. That being gay wasn't wrong. And the week after that, my friend came over to my studio again to copy all of the footage from that recording session. And he asked me point blankly, "I'll be here for you no matter what, but are you gay?" And I just nodded my head, yeah. And that was really the first time where I admitted it to one of my friends or anyone that this was who I really was inside. And it took me 24 years and 11 months to say those words and to nod my head in the right direction. Over the next 6 months, I decided to give myself a test because there was no way I was going to tell my family and friends I was gay if I truly didn't feel that way. And so there was this list in my mind of things I needed to check mark if I was completely okay with this and if I truly felt this way inside. So I allowed myself to look at all of the guys I wanted to look at, and it was wonderful 6 months. At the end of that 6 months was November 2017, and I went to dinner with my whole family for my brother-in-law's birthday down in BJ's restaurant in Allentown. And I remember that day so vividly because I was sitting at the table with 8 of my closest family members, and across the table and behind my father that night was this absolutely gorgeous blonde-haired boy. He had blue eyes, he was eating a cheeseburger, fries, and drinking a beer. And so I knew he was above 21 years old. I knew he was with his whole family that day sitting at dinner, and something about it just felt off. I wanted so desperately to go over to him that night and ask him to go to the Christmas light show that my family was going to later on after dinner. But I couldn't. I couldn't go over and ask him for his number or give him my number because my family was way too close to his table. And regardless of that, even if he was all the way across the restaurant, my family could still overhear what happened or wondered why I went over there. At Thanksgiving that year, which was only a couple days later, I decided enough was enough. I had to tell my family. There was no doubting the fact that I was gay anymore, and this test was incredibly successful. I was happier than I've ever been in these 6 months. My family members even pointed out the fact that for once in my life, I finally was smiling. For years in my life, I could not feel happiness for any kind of love in my entire family because I honestly thought I would never have that. And that felt devastating. I was depressed for the longest time inside, but I couldn't tell anyone why. And I hear all these stories all the time of gay kids seriously considering suicide, and there's a reason why nowadays the biggest charity I support and the only charity I support is the Trevor Project, because really I see myself in a lot of the kids that charity helps. I know how hurt inside you can be. I know how depressed you can be and not be able to tell anyone why. Over the next month, I decided to write a letter because I couldn't bear saying those words out loud to my family. And I decided to tell my family that I was actually bisexual, because if they didn't accept me for being gay, at least there was still a chance I was with a girl. And then on Christmas Day, I gave them that letter. And as they read the letter, I couldn't bear to be in the room. I knew it would hurt too much if they didn't accept it. But at the end of it, I came in the room and they just gave me a giant hug and said, "We'll love you no matter what." And I remember my sister saying to me how I didn't need to write 6 or 7 pages. All I needed to write was 2 words. And just knowing that my dad and my sister and my brother-in-law still loved me no matter what was just this incredible feeling that I'll never be able to repay them for. And then the very next day, I signed up for literally every gay dating app I can find. And I finally felt free to put myself out there and to start trying to date someone for real. In January, I told my best friend in the whole world my truth. And she just gave me a giant hug and told me that she's known for the longest time. She was just waiting for me to figure it out on my own. And she helped me get ready for my first date. And that weekend when I went on my first date with this boy named Ryan, there were so many warning signs that he was a jerk and that he was going to stand me up, but I didn't care. it was still my first ever date with a boy. But I finally had people to talk to. I had my best friend in the whole world. I had my three of my family members that I can share this with. I can share my ups and my downs with, finally. I no longer had to go it alone. And that felt wonderful. After that first date with the first boy I ever tried to go out with, my family started to ask me questions like why I was on all these gay dating apps, but I wasn't on any straight dating apps. And so I finally decided to tell them that the truth is there's nothing wrong with being bisexual, but I'm just not bisexual. The truth is I'm completely gay. But then over the next couple months, I went on all of these different dates with all these different guys, most of which just stood me up. But all my coworkers started to ask me questions like, why all of a sudden am I going on so many first dates? And they started to ask me all these really hard questions like, what's her name? What does she like? Where did you meet her? And I started to really feel hurt every single time I had to lie. And I was lying to them that I was going out with girls. And I started one by one telling them the truth. As they asked me who I was going out with, I just told them a boy's name. I just told them, well, it's not actually a girl, it's a guy. Every single one of them supported me. And that was the best feeling of all. I knew I was now in a workplace where I could be comfortable and with no fear of being fired. And then I heard my favorite artist in the whole world, Troye Sivan, was going to be at Pride event in Washington, D.C. And I decided to switch cities last minute, and I asked my best friend in the whole world to go with me. Because she was a rock throughout this entire thing. Even though she's straight, she was there for me through it all. Luckily, in the beginning of June, her and I went down to Washington, D.C., and we celebrated Pride together. And I remember walking through this whole event with hundreds of thousands of people, just like me, who went through a very similar storyline, and feeling the utmost pride and comfort in my community. I stood there and I watched hundreds of rainbow flags waving in the air, and I just started to bawl my eyes out. So much so that my best friend had to drag me out of there and just tell me to calm down for a moment. I planned on putting out this whole film and outing myself, but the truth is that night in Washington in my hotel room, I decided to write a Facebook post. And it basically read how I was done hiding who I am from the world. I was done not being able to smile, not being able to laugh when I wanted to laugh. Later on that month, I put out that short film all about being gay and the journey our community has been through. And again, I felt that love and acceptance ring through all the comments. In June 2018, I started dating my first ever boyfriend. And I introduced him to my whole family, and my family was nothing but accepting. They were so loving of the fact that I finally had the fourth pillar in my life that I have for a quarter of a century chased. And though that first relationship didn't work out, and I'm now with someone new, still, the love and acceptance throughout my entire family, my friends, my work life, and everywhere has been just unbelievable. But really, every one of my friends, my family, my coworkers, my customers, everyone has been absolutely loving and supporting throughout this entire process. They've accepted me for who I really am. And though I do occasionally meet that absolute jerk in my life, it's the support from the hundreds of other people who support me and the vast community behind us in the LGBTQ world that really drown out that one voice in the background. So I want to first thank all of those who have supported me throughout this whole process and love me all the same regardless. But if you're looking at this video looking for encouragement and just the strength to finally tell your family your secret, the truth is, I can't tell you when the right time is to tell them. No one can. I know right now you are scared to no end. And hearing my story as this somewhat perfect story of coming out and everyone accepting me doesn't mean everyone in your life will, unfortunately. I wish this was a world where everyone accepted everyone for who they really are, but it's not. There are some absolute jerks out there. But just know this. If you do decide to come out to your family or your friends or anyone, make sure you're in a safe spot to do that. Make sure there's always a way out. And be prepared for the absolute best and the absolute worst answer. Before I came out, as I was writing that letter to my family, I woke up every single night for 4 weeks straight with the worst night sweats. I woke up from this nightmare that I was running out of my house and down the street and down to the next town over, and every time I turned around and looked back, there was this giant black cloud chasing me. And it just was this reoccurring nightmare, night after night. I didn't sleep much for a whole month before I told them. It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was the riskiest thing, and I've risked a lot of money for my business before, and this was so much worse. It's a very personal thing telling people that you're gay, but it's something that I know in my heart was the right decision for me. Because now I'm finally at a point where I'm happy. And if you're not in a safe spot right now, know that it's okay to wait a little bit until you are in a safe spot. And when you finally are in that safe spot, tell people one at a time. That way, you're taking the good and the bad. And that way, you're building this support system of people who support you. And that way, if one comes along that doesn't support you, you have this community behind you already who does support you. Tell those farther away from you first. And that way, when you tell someone close, you have a support system of your friends behind you first. It was a lot easier telling my friends that I was gay and my coworkers that I was gay than it was to tell my family members and my best friend. They were the toughest people of all. Because those are the people that should love me no matter what, but those are the people that can also hurt me the most by not accepting it. If you're thinking about coming out to your family or your friends and you're looking for any kind of advice or encouragement, please do comment below. I'm here for you. Our community is here for you. You can be powered and protected by rainbows too. If you're already out to the world, maybe you're looking for a great coming out story. And mine wasn't perfect, but I want you to know that I'm happier than I've ever been. Maybe you're watching this as a straight person and you're not a member of the LGBTQ, but you're just trying to understand it. And that I appreciate more than anything. But if you're feeling depressed at all, please do not hesitate to call the number in the description box below to the Trevor Project. It is also right here on your screen right now. It is a charity set up with a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline that you can call for advice, for help, and to just someone to talk to. And believe me, in those years before I came out, all I needed was one person to talk to who can understand. And though I never had that, with the Trevor Project, you do. You have that. So if that's a resource you need, here is the number for it. Thank you so much for watching, and see us next time. Bye for now. If you want to support the show and get this awesome t-shirt in the process to show the world how you're empowered and protected by rainbows as well, please hop on over to the link in the description box below or the link on your screen right now to get this awesome shirt for yourself.